So I wanted to ask you, so I got a bunch of questions from my audience. I said when I'm down there I want to talk to Gavin, let's just ask him whatever's on your mind.
Let's do it.
So they were like, okay, so they gave me a bunch. So my number one question, I spent a little bit last evening kind of memorizing them so that I didn't have to go with my phone.
Yeah, it looks bad.
It looks, well, and it's just, you look like
Biden with his little cue cards.
Yeah, exactly. So the first one was, how the did this newspaper that you were a part of end up becoming, and it was cool, end up becoming this liberal rag?
Oh, that's easy. So I was the brains of the operation, and I sort of made the blueprint for it, but that's going to fade over time. And the head of sales, Shane Smith, he took over. And he was never into the culture. Like when I was 14, I was making mixtapes and sending them to pen pals in Britain, and they were sending me their local punk bands, and we had all this network. I've always been into the culture. I've always been a fan, and that comes out when you're a culture creator. People can tell that you're part of it. Like Iggy Pop was a music nerd and was always like trying to find the coolest musicians, and that's how we formed the Stooges. Anyway. You'll see that with a lot of sort of rock stars, whatever, pop stars. But that wasn't Shane's culture. Shane was just, let's make money. And in fact, when we would get drunk on Friday nights, I don't want to talk about work. We've been working all week. And he would just like put his lips touching my ear and be like, we're going to be so rich. We're going to have so much money. And I'm like, okay, all right, great. I like money. But let's talk about girls or something, please. But anyway, so he took it over after I left in 2008, and then you just follow the money. Okay, what are young girls, who has the most money? And that's young girls. That's why Kylie Jenner's a billionaire. That no one spends like young girls. Mm-hmm. Okay, then that's our demographic. What are they into? Garbage woke. So it took a long time, though. There was like a Vice 2.0 that they wanted to do the travel news thing, and that had a woke element to it, like that chick who's a dude now, Elliot Page. She had a show, I think, called Gaycation. But then it really, like, once the cogs started moving, they had chicks involved. And then the dumbest thing they did was, I think they got scared of Me Too'd, or they did, some of them got Me Too'd, because they hired all chicks and woke people, and those people, they think like a smile is a Me Too. So they got they got hoisted on their own retard, and Me Too started going around. So then Shane put Nancy Dubuque in charge, who people tell me is an absolute. And so now you went from appealing to women and they're woke to employing women and they're woke. You get that much woke together and it just tanks.
I saw on Twitter you're going back and forth with somebody from Vice, and you're like, you took this great thing I built and you f***ed it, right?
Yeah.
You f***ed it. Who was that you were tangling with?
So there's a couple, they fell in love stalking me.
Are you serious?
Yeah, basically, Andy Campbell and Tess Owen. He wrote a book about the Proud Boys, and he's just obsessed with finding hate, Mm-hmm. Like we're gonna show on my show later on, these dead fentanyl junkies, we're up to 120 opioid overdoses a day, and these journalists are just obsessed with finding a white, straight, male conservative using the N-word 10 years ago. So that's their kind of milieu. And yeah, her job, she worked at Vice, he works at Washington Post or Huffington Post or something, and that's all she did.
Hi, this is Anthony Cumia.
Hello, I'm Gavin McInnes.
And together we're Compound Censored.
And we would like you to subscribe with this deal using this promo code right below me right now.
Do it, because it's very entertaining.
Well, as Proud Boys were seen here, and they're plotting this, and one was arrested for drunk driving in Portland last year, and like just garbage journalism. And we're seeing this happen right now with all these dumb cat blog type news places like Daily Beast and all that. You cried wolf too many times. And people are saying, yeah, you kept telling me there's Nazis everywhere. Then October 7th happened and I saw all these anti-Jew protests and I didn't see any MAGA hats in the crowd. It was all like Syrians and Palestinians and Pakistanis and then woke Marxist college students who were all liberals. So it's the borders that we opened up and the schools that we encouraged. So it's your fault.
Yeah, well, so who are the Nazis now, right?
Yeah.
Who are the ones who are out there raging now?
I just saw a thing in Britain. Was it Britain or Toronto? They're the same place. Yeah, I think it was Britain. And they were waving swastika flags. And the cops weren't arresting them. And you know how Britain is. If you
Yeah,
say
there was
the
a
word Nazi.
big exchange there between a police officer and a woman, some progressive woman who was like, "Hi, if you see this symbol, shouldn't you instantly make an arrest?" And the cop was like, "No."
But they would if it was MAGA.
Yeah, they would.
If it was Proud Boys waving swastika flags, everyone would be in jail.
Yeah.
So the moral of that story is the rules don't apply to non-whites. Mm-hmm. It's an anti-white rule is what it is. It's anti-white racism is what those journalists were getting into. It's what the cops are being told to get into. It's got nothing to do with who is and isn't a Nazi.
Well, I mean, that's a symbol that they've really assigned to you, right? That you're a neo-Nazi. I hear that nonstop all the time. In fact,
crypto-fascist,
all
neo-fascist.
I put out a tweet and just said, "Hey, I'm in the studio. I'm about to do this show with this guy." There was a bunch even on Twitter who were like, "Oh, now you're hanging out with neo-Nazis, huh?" So the thing is how did you get to this label of neo-Nazis? Is it the Proud Boys stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the Proud Boys have always been multiracial. They've always had Jews in them. There was a Proud Boys Israel. I don't know if it's still around. I haven't talked to those guys in a long time. But the reason I got that moniker is because I'm influential and I was making Trump cool, so they call you a Nazi. You know, the right kind of does it with but they're usually correct when they make that allegation. Right. But it's their go-to insult. Like, look at Trump. How many times have you seen him with the Hitler mustache or Sieg Heiling or with the, swastika behind him? He's been compared to Hitler a billion times. That's how.
Well, if there's any disagreement, you're a Nazi.
Yes. I mean, so that's why it's not anything I've ever said. Mm-hmm. I don't really care. I have so much hate for like guys who wear Crocs and stay-at-home dads, and there's so much hate I have to give that like your race is way down there. I got higher priorities.
Yeah, but the neo-Nazi thing was effective, right? It's effective in culture to call people that. These woke mobs get behind it. They deperson you, right? They deperson you.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty effective tactic.
Yeah. It really is. But I don't know, if they really believed it, wouldn't they want to debate you or something?
No, they don't do that.
It's just like they Sieg Heil.
If you're allowed to defend yourself with evidence, right, they're going to look stupid. So anytime people come up with personal assaults or personal attacks, things like this, they try to tie you to these insane groups. If you say, listen, if I can show up and defend myself and bring evidence, and you can bring evidence and we have this moderated so that people can then make the judgment call, they'll never do it.
I think you're right, and I think that's their new religion. That's replaced Christianity, and it's the same as, the old Game of Thrones thing of shame. No one wants to talk to that person they're yelling shame at and be like, so what did you do?
You're right.
And why are you being chased out of the village?
Well, then they take that person and put them in with now they're getting shamed.
You're both shamed.
Now you're both. Yeah.
It's like it's like I like the witch hunt analogy because it's that ridiculous. They don't really care. That's why they put you in the water to see if you drown, and if you drowned, you weren't a witch. They're not looking to stop witchcraft.
Right. Oops.
It's just the allegation.
Yeah.
And they do it with Proud Boys too, and they do it with Trump. They do it with Tucker. They do it. I'm sure they've done it with you.
Yeah. The punishment's the process.
Yeah.
Right. It's not the punishment itself that's so bad. It's the process, and the idea of attacking you personally, attacking your wife, your kids, all of that they know hurts you. They can't attack a person who can defend themselves. They always attack the people who can't, and that is what drives people insane. They know it, and it's one of the weakest, most cowardly attacks you can do. But that's what they do.
Yeah, well, they don't have a wife and kids, so they don't see how sacred that is. Like the mob.
Well, the men have husbands, and the women do have wives.
Sometimes, a lot of these woke journalists are spinsters, like Taylor Lorenz.
Yeah.
She's never having any kids. They're all empty egg cartons. Amanda Marcotte is another one. But
did you say empty egg cartons?
Yeah. The mob doesn't shoot you when you're with your kids. The Bloods and the Crips avoid doing hits when the wife and kids.
The mob would kill you and then send your wife $100,000 to get her through. It's like, we're sorry,
that tough time.
We're really sorry for
Sorry,
your
but you had a
loss.
gambling debt.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we had to take care of it.
But you know what I noticed? Even like, is 10 years ago too long? You had David Duke. Not that I'm David Duke, but you would have David Duke on CNN, and him and Wolf Blitzer are yelling at each other. Richard Spencer was on ESPN, and he was talking about white privilege. And he wasn't there to say, I'm not a racist. He was there as like a proud white nationalist. Mm-hmm. And that goes all the way back to, we were talking the other day about the origins of America, of two sides arguing. And, you know, you had Gore Vidal and William F. Buckley. Those were sort of seen as the peak time in American discourse. And they kept fucking losing. So now they won't go near, forget David Duke, they won't go near Pat Buchanan, Tucker Carlson, they won't go near Jesse Waters, for fuck's sakes, because they get eaten alive. Lara Logan, they won't have her on The View. They just go, oh, she lost her mind. No, she's correct. And if she's lost her mind, why don't you ridicule her and her crazy positions?
Because they can't.
They can't. They always lose. When was the last time you saw a liberal sweep the floor with anyone?
Well, I mean, I'm a professional debater, essentially. That's how I make my living, is by debating progressives.
Has a liberal ever made you sweat one bead?
Not even a little. Not even a little. Not when it comes. Sometimes some of them are okay when it comes to philosophy, but they're generally really terrible when it comes to politics. They have terrible political takes, and most of it has nothing to do with reality. It's all non-reality.
And their research is Facebook. Like when I saw Don Lemon interview Elon Musk, and he's like, for him, the Tuskegee guys, they were just injected with syphilis.
Yeah.
This land was stolen from the Indians. All these cities were built by slavery.
It's so low tier.
The Black Wall Street was burned down. It's the politics I had when I was 14, you know, and they're still at that Facebook level. So I can't argue with those people. They're too dumb.
Well, I mean, Don Lemon had a terrible performance, and it looked like Musk got the better of him, basically in every single exchange that they had. Lemon looked stupid, he looked uninformed, he looked unintelligent, and he wasn't even asking good questions. You know, imagine you have Elon Musk. This guy is the guy right now. There's nobody who's a bigger guy than Elon Musk anywhere. I'd argue that he has more influence than the President of the United States does.
Yeah.
And you have him for an interview, and these are the questions that you're asking?
You're a drug addict, and you must be high to support Trump, and your platform encourages Nazis. Those were his three thrusts, and you're like, dude.
Well, what about the how illogical it is to try to take what people say from 10 or 15 years prior, or actions from 10 or 15 years prior, like people don't change? That's insane to me. You know what I mean? People change constantly. You're not nothing like you were 20 years ago. You can't be. It's not possible.
Right.
And so, you know, these people will try to drag it up 15 years, 20 years.
Well, there's also the context of the time, too.
Yeah.
You know? Even with Israel, Judaism, there's pre-October 7th Zionism and post-October 7th Zionism. But that's my whole problem with the left, is the total inability to understand nuance. Like, I'd way rather see a neocon like John Bolton argue with the paleocon like Buchanan. I would definitely come out of that way smarter.
Yeah.
Rather than the tedium of... And I like that you guys do the low-hanging fruit of the whatever podcast, because I think you're doing the Lord's work. Same with Charlie Kirk and Crowder going to these college campuses. Like, when you hear the counter-arguments from these college kids, you're like, whoa, you know nothing. You're going $250,000 in debt to come out stupider than when you went in. And then with this public education, it's like, they can't name countries. Have you seen any of these streeters name 3 countries other than America? And they're like, Dubai, Asia.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, we've asked those questions, you know. We ask them, you know, whatever. We'll ask them kind of basic things like, can you name 3 countries that were in the Axis during World War II? And they're like, they can't name one.
They don't know what World War II is.
Yeah, they have no idea. Yeah. No clue. Well, let me move on to some of the other questions that the audience had. So they're going to progressively kind of get tougher, I guess. The right, the right wing also has, we're highly factioned. You have the dissident right, dissonant right would be guys that would be considered, I don't know, Nick Fuentes-ish, this
Love
type
him.
of thing. Then you have kind of the status quo right, and this would be TPUSA.
Love it.
This would be the Daily Wire.
Love it.
These types of guys. You know
Love
what I
'em.
mean? But they seem to be terrified to engage with the dissonant right.
Absolutely.
They
yeah.
seem absolutely petrified. So Charlie Kirk is not ever going to debate a Nick Fuentes guy.
No.
And the Daily Wire guys do not seem to want to tangle up with any right-wing dissenters against their status quo kind of neoconservative takes. Is this just because they're worried about losing their status if they lose a debate like that? Or is it because they just, well,
I think
maybe we can't defend ourselves so well?
No, I don't think it's that. My gut says that there is major, like the Daily Wire, for example, they have some major funding going on, and there's one caveat: stay away from Nick Fuentes.
Oh yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
he's too charming, and I don't want him making denial cool. I'm not paying all this money. This is my grandfather's money too, by the way. This is 3 generations of money. I'm not paying you my entire lineage's money to go against everything they believe in. Now, if you want to have the occasional controversial opinion, which Candace did, I could let that squeeze through. As long as you generally are pro-Jew, you'll get the check. And then Candace, so they were fine with Candace, and then I don't even know if she stood next to him or was featured next to him, but that's the eject button with a lot of the right. And I think it's true of me too. Me also, I mean, where there's certain people like they just cannot. Like Nick Oakes, the guy from Murder the Media. He was standing next to Judge Pirro, Jeanine Pirro, in Hawaii. He lived in Hawaii. And then word got out that he was a Proud Boy. She destroyed his life and ended his career. And he's now in jail for Jan 6. But yeah, I'd say there's certain third rails, and I think the left is scared of debate because they'll lose, and I think the right is different. They like debate, but there's certain lines they won't cross, and that's Proud Boys, me, Nick Fuentes. And I'm pro-Israel. I'm a Jew lover, and they don't care about the actual mathematics of it all. It's just like, no.
You're just either toxic or you're not.
You just get the scarlet letter and there's nothing you can do about it. Like Milo. Milo's been innocent for, 10 years now. He's working on Ye's campaign. He'll never be on Bill Maher, ever again, because he has the scarlet letter. And I think you just got to embrace it. And at least you die with your boots on. That's why at the end of every show I say, get fired, get in trouble, be brave, and never stop fighting. You can't compromise yourself. Like these cops with all the rules they have to follow, don't follow them. Arrest the person, throw them on the ground, and then get fired. Better that than be a pussy cop your whole life.
Yeah. Well, there has been platforms, like really highly progressive platforms, who've offered to, host these kinds of debates between the dissident right and kind of the middle right TPUSA types, you know what I mean? Where it doesn't seem like you'd get a lot of blowback if you were arguing against a guy like Fuentes, arguing against a guy like Gavin. But still, these people in the TPUSA movements and this type of thing, they don't seem to want to engage in this.
I think and I'm guessing, but I think it's because they're scared that people, even if Nick loses, then Nick will get converts.
Right.
And they can't risk that.
Gotcha. Well, actually, that makes sense. Well, okay, so moving on to the next question. This one came up constantly because I have...
Can I interrupt you,
Yeah,
sir?
yeah.
When I first started this site, I had debates where I'd have right and the left. I had Candace Owens and Cornel West and Roger Stone and Mark Lamont Hill. Without exception, the Liberals wanted insane amounts of money, like 15 grand. And wouldn't do it for 10, wouldn't do it for 12. Like Candace charged me 15 grand. And the right-wingers were like, yeah, plane and hotel, I'll be there, don't worry about it. So I just became financially untenable. I just stopped doing it. So
Too much money.
They're not, the problem with the left in America today, and the Western world, is they're incurious. And that's a dead end. They're religious fanatics.
Yeah, with the religion of secularism.
Yeah.
That's not a religion, right?
Right.
Even though it is.
It totally is.
But the other question I had memorized, because this one came up all the time, because I have a pretty heavily Christian audience. They're like, ask Gavin about all the gay shit. Ask him about all the gay. What's with the dildo rumor?
Dildo.
What's with the making out with Milo? What's with all that?
I think that is a generational thing with Gen X. And I've lived in the city since I was 18, so I've always been I'm not allowed to swear, right?
No,
I've always been around.
it's such a fun word to say.
I know, I love it.
It's such a fun word.
But like Bam Margera putting anal beads up his ass and then having a kite pull them out on Jackass. That's sort of my people. That Shane Smith guy, we would make out with each other at parties just to gross everyone out. The Hells Angels used to do it in the 60s and 70s. Bikers would just to freak out the squares, But there was a shooting at that gay nightclub. So it was my idea, and I said, let's go there the next day and say F Islam and make out as a F you to Muslims.
Because this was the Pulse nightclub.
Pulse. And that was dangerous.
Yeah.
We had like snipers on we didn't have snipers, we had bodyguards checking for snipers on the roof. It had just happened.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of gays, like a month later, would say, we stand with Pulse, and then would kiss their boyfriend in their living room. And I'm like, A, you're gay, so that's not hard to kiss your boyfriend. B, you're in the safety of your living room. I'm not gay, and I made out with Milo in front of the nightclub and said, F Islam. That took some balls. So I'm very happy with that.
But Milo's pretty gay.
Oh, he's very gay. Although he says he's not anymore. But he was definitely gay back then.
He still seems pretty gay. Okay, it still seems little on the...
So I'm very proud of that one. That story's there. Gay isn't a thing to me. Young men are very scared of homosexuality. I just think it's like a sin, but it doesn't register. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I remember when it did. When I was like 12, 13, I went to see Rocky Horror, again with Shane. We were childhood friends. And there's a scene where Frankenfurter is in bed with Brad. And I remember that scene being like an electric shock. I was just like, why is that in that movie? Like, I loved everything about that movie, but that one gay scene, now as an old man, I'd watch and be like, oh, then there's the gay scene. Like, it wouldn't do anything to me. But when you're going through puberty, you just pass it. When you're teen, it's like the most horrific, scary thing in the world. And like the modern context of homosexuality is kind of different too, with Drag Queen Story Hour and everything. They really have ruined their brand very recently with all this grooming stuff.
But wasn't it all the normalization of homosexuality that led all this to begin with?
Yes.
And it's like I think that's why people are so mortified. They're like, you are a party to this. Your lobby led to this.
Yeah, but the Pulse thing is I was trying to offend Muslims.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And then the other one that I always bring up. Oh wait, the reason I brought up the Rocky Horror thing is I think a lot of people don't like that a lot of my fans are young men. So they push the he's gay butt plug thing because it makes young men go, ugh, yuck. So it's sort of like the Nazi thing. If you want to make women hate a guy, call him a Nazi and say he wants to kill innocent Mexicans. And if you want to get young men to hate a guy, say he's gay and he loves making out with dudes. But yeah, the butt plug thing was just funny. We had a lot of stars on the show because this was back when it was Anthony Cumia's network and Shock Jock, porn stars around. And so there was always sex toys on the desk and stuff that they would bring. And Hillary Clinton was dancing really badly, like this.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And
it's still a meme.
I go, what the heck is she doing? She dances like she's got something up her ass. And I go, I bet I could dance better than her with something up my ass. So I grabbed one of the dildos, and then I started dancing better than her, the butt plug. It wasn't like the narrative they like to do is so that I was like, oh yeah, you like that. But it was more like, hey, and then dancing around better than Hillary. I did a card trick once where I took an ace of spades and I rolled it up into a condom and I put it up my, and then I was doing street magic on the street. I was like, is this your card? And then I would pull a card out from like behind their jacket and they're like, no, that's not the card. It was the ace of spades. The whole deck was an ace of spades.
Yeah. It was
and
like
so
a Singali
all these
deck
tourists, all these tourists were around, and they're like, "You're not good at magic." And I'm like, "Oh, aren't I? Well, is this your card?" And they're, "No, that's not the card." So then people start to leave, and they go, "Wait! I think one last idea." And then I pull my pants down, find the condom, yank out the card, open it up, and that was the card.
That's a really gross magic trick, by the way.
Well, you know what's funny about it? And you know the expression like, "What's up your ass?"
Yeah.
I had to walk to the location, and I had an ace of spades at my and I'm walking the location, and I was in a bad mood. It does make you grumpy to have something up your
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I've never
there's
had anything
also-
up my ass, I don't know, but yeah.
There's also the expression, who pissed in your cornflakes? Is that Canadian, or do you have that down here?
Yeah, we have it here.
So I tried it once. I pissed into a bowl of cornflakes and ate it, and it hurts. Like the urine burns your mouth. If you have any cuts or anything, it's very painful.
Yeah,
it's like bleach.
You're not supposed to eat urinated cornflakes, Gavin.
Yeah, don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. That's
Don't
bad,
do it.
Bad idea.
And once again, if someone pisses in your cornflakes, you are in a bad mood.
Yeah, I would be in a bad mood. I'd be in a bad mood though if they pissed on anything and then I had to eat
Yeah.
it. It doesn't matter what it was.
I got to try throwing a wiener down a hallway. See if that one's real too.
Tic tac down a whale's mouth. Yeah. So okay, two more. I had two more questions for you.
Okay.
These came up in the chat a bunch. What are your plans basically going forward? Are you just going to stick with your same network and just keep going with the shows that you have? Do you have any
I want to expand. Yeah. I'd love Censored to be as big as possible. And I want to be very choosy about the people we get. I just don't want it to become like a YouTube where anyone can contribute. I sort of see it as like a menu at a restaurant. And I want to look at the homepage and be proud. And I'm proud of everyone there. It's not one that I'm sort of like, people like him, but it's not my cup of tea. Everyone's my cup of tea.
you have Elijah Schaefer? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I love him. Great guy.
Yeah, I like Elijah too. I
Great
talk to him
content.
quite a bit.
And like,
I'm just taking a shot. I'm taking a shot. Shut up, Elijah. You're fine. You're good.
Atheists, I don't like atheism, but Devin is great at videos and he doesn't really talk about it much. It bothers me that he doesn't believe in God, but I don't mind differing opinions.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the name atheism is unstoppable, right? So, I mean, but that's his thing, and I guess you got to have, a different represented view.
I think it's his brand long ago. It's sort of like the band Pearl Jam. Like you come with a stupid name and then you're stuck with it forever. I don't think
That was a really bad name for a band.
It means doesn't it?
It's pretty
Gross.
bad.
But Devin, if he was married with kids, he'd be much happier. And all of these people who roll their eyes at Christianity and tradition and marriage are having trouble. They're not happily married with kids.
Well, they're just not happily.
All our enemies,
it.
by the
So
way,
it's not
go
happily.
research all of our enemies. Not that Devin's our enemy, but they are all miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, all of them. Well, none of them are married.
None of them are married.
And none of them really even have girlfriends. None of them really have anything.
Well, it's even true of like Fox News. I can't tell you how many panels I would be on back when I was doing Fox a lot. And I'd be like, I'm the only guy at this table who's married with kids. And we're sitting here talking about spring break and how the parents failed. You don't know what it's like to parent.
No clue, right? They basically have no insight into it at all.
Yeah.
So, well, it's interesting. My last question, and then maybe we can get to just one more other thing, after that. The relationships that you are criticized for, right? It's all guilt by association, essentially. What are the actual criticisms that are levied against you, absent the guilt by association?
Oh, well, are you asking me what criticisms are valid?
Well, so I was trying to figure this out, right? I was like, what did this guy actually do? Like, what? Why is it? Because I can look at things like Fuentes has said, Fuentes has done, and I can pinpoint those things and be like, okay, now I understand.
Well, he denies the...
Right, I understand the things that they're pointing at to say this guy's, he's a bad guy, he's a this, he's a that, you know what I mean? I've had some of those criticisms myself for the guy, right? I have my own criticisms of him. But I can at least point at him and be like, okay, at least I understand what they're talking about. With you, when I try to research it, I'm like, what the f*** is this crime exactly? I can't figure it out.
Well, there's the powers that be, the DNC, they decided one day that I had to die. Like, I've done a talk at the Metropolitan Club in Manhattan, the Republican Club there, many times. And it's fine every time. And then right before the midterms, when they needed Republicans to look bad, there's like 300 people outside for my talk. And I was mainstream. I was at The Blaze. I was at CRTV. I was a very normal dude. I could get basically any guest I wanted, Jordan Peterson, whatever. They were happy to come on, no fear whatsoever. And then one night, That Antifa jumps the Proud Boys go to prison. Antifa jumps a journalist, they don't even get probation. And banned from every platform, boom, 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 boom. It was a very quick thing. And before that, the crime was just starting a group that wanted to fight, was happy to fight, I should say, Antifa. Antifa are the paramilitary wing of the DNC. And if you with them, you're with the stormtroopers, the ground force.
Sure.
And that the DNC can't have that. They love Antifa. They love the riots. They love BLM. And if you stand up to them, you got to go.
Those Proud Boys were also kicking the shit out of them, which was, it was kind of fun to watch,
yeah,
honestly.
Never unprovoked.
Yeah.
Go around and find out.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have cared if it was unprovoked. I don't like Antifa. I'm like, if they get their asses kicked, they get their asses kicked.
Go to their house and beat their heads.
Yeah, I don't care. Well, I've looked at the kind of tactics, and it's like, one of the things that shut these guys down was when those guys were kicking their asses.
So if you enjoyed that clip,
then subscribe to Compound Censored using this promo code.